All right, what's up, everybody? Another episode of the Brooklyn Boxing Podcast. I'm Pat Healy, and I'm joined by Lennard Action Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Hey there. Well, how's it going, guys? I'm here. What's up?
All good. Well, yeah, appreciate you coming on. And obviously, with the nickname Action Jackson, boxing's full of amazing nicknames, but that's a pretty good one. So I'm curious how you got that.
Well, I didn't name myself, so it's not something that I put on myself to tag. I don't think it was something I got from actually as a boxer. I got it more so from my training. When I started training and how active I was and in the gyms, and every time they see me, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. So they just started calling me Action, along with the Jackson. It made sense. So it was Action Jackson. When I fought, I had different nicknames. One of the nicknames they used to call me was Hard Hands because I was knocking guys out. So that was one of my favorite nicknames I liked. And people used to call me Marvelous because I was a southpaw and ball-headed just like Marvin Hagler. So they used to call me Marvelous. So I like that one as well. Who's Marvelous? Marvin Hagler is actually one of my favorite fighters. I got a chance to meet him many years ago.
He's just an absolute killer. I grew up outside of Boston, so I love.
Oh wow! Okay, there you go.
I love Hagler. He's a.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I'm a big Hagler fan. Huge Hagler fan. People ask me all the time, who's your favorite boxer? My favorite boxer of all time would be Sugar Ray Robinson. Sugar Ray Robinson, hands down, was probably the greatest fighter that ever put on a pair of gloves. At one time, his professional record was like 179 and one. Only lost being to like Jake LaMotta, who he avenged 3 times. So then it was 3 wins for him and 1 for Jake LaMotta. But in terms of like my current day of favorites, it would have to be, current day for me, meaning the fighters that I grew up watching, Marvin Hagler. That was it. That was my guy.
And Sugar Ray Robinson too, like those old school guys, even Hagler as well, but especially like Sugar Ray Robinson, the amount that he fought and like back then those guys, they would fight, it was like every week. It was insane.
Yeah, no, they literally used boxing as a way to make a living, and they did it with putting together a bunch of fights because it wasn't like the big purses nowadays. Nowadays, one fight per year or every other year because they're making so many millions of dollars. Back then, you were lucky to make a few thousand, and so they would piece together fights just so they could make the ends meet.
Yeah. So growing up in New York, were you were born and raised in New York, right?
Yes, I was born and raised in Harlem, New York City.
So growing up, were you kind of idolizing a guy like Sugar Ray Robinson, or were there other guys, like local guys? You took?
No, I didn't even get really hip to boxing. I'm an exception, not the rule. And the reason why is that I had success at a very late age. Most fighters that start boxing, they start when they're like 5, 6 years old. Yeah. And that's when they become successful. But I didn't start boxing or even get involved in boxing. I was 19 years old. Wow. And I became an amateur champion. I became an amateur champion pretty fast. And then Dave Wolfe became my manager, who was one of the premier boxing managers. He had Boomer Mancini, right. Don Lalonde discovered me, and I signed with Dave. Sparring with Don Lalonde, and he was like, "Look, there's this guy. You got to see Dave. He's a young kid. He's only a middleweight, but he hits like a heavyweight." And Donnie was a light heavyweight at the time, and Dave came, he saw me, and they signed me up. Dave Wolfe was my manager, and so.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Wolfe is a crazy. I mean, he has a pretty storied.
Well, he's dead now. God bless his dead, but yeah.
But he has storied career as a manager, and
yes,
I was reading a little bit about like kind of his beginnings too. Even with, I think it kind of all started with Joe Frazier. He was working on an autobiography with him, and he was sitting in his camp for the.
Time. I think he was covering for Time. It was either Time or Life magazine, one of the two. He worked for, and he was covering him, and he was in Joe Frazier's camp, and he used to be in. He was doing the story, and he was covering him for like the fight. I believe it was a fight against Muhammad Ali, and he was there, every second, and that's kind of like what got his juices flowing, But he used to put me in his. I used to go to his office on 79th Street, off Central Park West. Every week, he'd sit me in his office and basically school me about boxing. And the intricacies of the sport in terms of like managing and like what's happening behind the scenes. And he just taught me a lot of, I learned a lot from Dave Wolfe. That was my guy. God bless the dead.
So yeah. How old were you when that relationship started?
Okay, well,
19, you turned pro or started?
Well, I didn't know. 19, I started boxing. I didn't even know what
right,
boxing.
right.
So and I quickly, I didn't have a long amateur career, but I won like after like 4 or 5, I won the Spanish gloves. So I was immediately thrown into, like, once you win a major tournament, you're immediately you go into the open class for golden gloves. You can't, so I was immediately thrown into the open class golden gloves, and I made it to the finals. I lost to Lonnie Bradley, who became a good friend of mine, actually. Another middleweight. He became the middleweight champion in WBO. Beat Simon Brown and a few other stellar names back in the day. But so I lost to him in the finals. But after that, I went pro. That was probably 1990 was the year I went pro. I started boxing in '86. I went pro in 1990. So I was about 23 when I turned pro.
So you mentioned, obviously, you had the heavy hands in your record. 11 of your fights where you won by knockout, correct?
Okay, but actually, yeah, I've got one unsanctioned when the bouts are not, in Guyana. I had a first round knockout, so it's really 15, but that's okay. I'll keep it. On the books, it has me as 14. I think it's 14-11, but I'm really 15-1 with 12 knockouts. But I don't want to discount the guy I knocked out in Guyana, but that's okay. Which is another story.
So when did you first kind of realize that you had, that punching power? Like, was it just when you first started getting in the gym, the trainers told you, or when you first started to spar, you started to realize, I can hurt guys?
It happened when, I don't know, but I would say that I was very much into the technique. Technical boxing in terms of like sitting on my punches. And so, and then I just had heavy hands. And so once I started sitting on my punches, and I was a type of guy that, I wasn't taking backward steps. So I was going to land something. I mean, and once I started sitting on my punches with the heavy hands, and I'm sitting on my punches and I'm putting my full body into it, it was just like a natural fit that I was going to knock guys out. Like, I used to like go in the ring knowing that I was going to knock guys out. Like, it was like, because, when you spar like 16-ounce gloves, when you fight back then, I was still in the era where as a middleweight, you fought with 8-ounce gloves. And then, when you look at the cast that they put on your hand before you put the mitt, you put the gauze and the tape, that's like a cast, you got that in your hands. And then that little 8-ounce, I used to be like, man, if anybody I land, they're going out, and I was knocking guys out in sparring. So I knew, like, I used to knock out heavyweights in the gym. Like, I come from an era where we would spar life and death. It's not like today. Like, there was no pity. There was no, the first time I sparred, I was in the gym. My first time sparring was in the guy, he was like 11 losses with 1 win. And he kicked my butt. I'm saying he kicked my ass. I mean, he bloody nose. It was the first time I ever sparring because, he didn't take it easy on me. And he kicked my ass, and I didn't make it past 1 round. And I remember my legs feeling weak and whatever, and they pulled me out. And then the next day, I just started running up the stairs. I would take the stairs every day. I'd take the stairs, and next time they called me for sparring, hit me, and my nose bled again, but my legs didn't feel weak. So I said, "Damn, I'm making progress." So I kept, it's the guy that gets hit his first time in the ring and decides this is not for him. Those are the guys you never see again. It's the guy you get addicted when you get hit with some good shots early, and you're like, okay, well, and you stay in there. That's how you become like an addict, so to speak. And so I knew I could punch when I started mastering the technique with turning my body into those punches and using those small little gloves, and I just knew I was going to knock somebody out.
And now, obviously, you're a trainer, and we'll touch on. I want to talk about your career, obviously, but as a trainer, when you look at sparring today with pro fighters, are you still of that kind of old school mindset in terms of like we need to go to war in the gym and sparring and
No,
preparation?
I believe that, that was for the time that it was for. In other words, this evolution, as you go along, like back then, no water, you can't drink water. Like now I'm like, how could you like not drink water? You know what I mean? Like think about how many brains were damaged back then because we couldn't drink water. You know what I mean? Like water is essential to the body, So, it's an evolution process. We did what we did back then and we survived and we made it, but we learned the lessons, some of them the hard lessons, so that we could like teach our students now that no, let's look at safety. Let's look at, I'm not saying you're not gonna go in there and crack somebody, but
Right.
back then if you had a guy wobbling, take him out. You know what I mean? Like in sparring, you know what I mean? Like whereas now if he's wobbling, hey, hold on guys, let's get, So I think that nowadays it's safety. Safety is a very important part of boxing and sparring. And it's not about so much like killing a guy. It's about learning how to use what you're learning in the gym, and use it in a practical manner. So I think that, I like the way that we've evolved in terms of sparring.
Yeah, because that's like a topic that's pretty talked about nowadays. Is there's still a lot of fighters that, of course, everyone has to like go through those wars in preparation.
Yeah,
But a lot of people today, a lot of fighters that take some heat for doing it. They post on social media knocking guys out in sparring and kind of in a when you can tell they're sparring someone who's much of a lower skill set and things like that, and that's still kind of a part of the game that I think is unfortunate. But
well, I agree with you on that because I feel like if you're in there with someone who is not of your skill set and that you're like more dominant than him and you're sparring him, I think that the best thing to do is to work on other things. That's a good time for you to work on your defense. You know what I mean? Like let him throw more of the punches, or maybe you could work on inside fighting, or maybe you could work on, there's always something that you can work on that's going to still allow you to get in there with that guy who's less skilled than you, all right, and still make it so that you gained and he gained, because if you're in there just blasting them out, how are you gaining from that? And how is he gaining from that? That's the argument that I have. I don't see the game, and it's all about gaining. When you're in there sparring, because you want to get the ring time in, true, and the experience of being in the ring, but you also want to develop skills that you're learning on the floor. Mm-hmm. The process is you learn what you learn on the floor, all right, the heavy bag, the mitts, and you take that into sparring. And then from sparring, you take that into the actual fight. So there's a progression, and so at the end of the day, what you've been working on the floor, it's now time to take that in the ring and see if you can make that work in the ring and sparring. And so, I feel like, if you're in there just blasting guys out and sparring, what is that? What are you doing? It's a macho thing. To me, it's not, it's not something that I would agree to. And if I'm a trainer that's in there, in the corner, in the gym when that's happening, I'm not going to allow that.
Right.
That's not gonna, anybody that knows me, they know that I'm going to be in the corner. I'm going to be watching the fighters, and I'm going to be looking for safety.
Yeah. And, your pro career, obviously a successful one. You're knocking out most of the opponents you're facing. And during the time that you were a pro, there were some, kind of a lot of legendary names that were in that division. There's, I believe, James Toney at the time, Steve Collins, Eubank.
There was a lot of
Jones Jr.
I remember one of my favorite sparring sessions was with Mike Mccalum, the body snatcher. You know what I mean? Like, so I was, we were in there with, and that's what you love. Like, I come from an era where, please, if whatever champion came to the gym, you were begging your trainer to like let you get in there with that champion. You know what I mean? Because that's how you're gonna learn. And you want to get. And we were getting ass kicked, but we would love it because, you got your ass kicked up by the champ, and that means you learned something. You know what I mean? Like back then, that's like we learned something. I mean, it was a privilege to get in the ring with the champ and get your ass kicked. Back then.
So was it a tough sparring session with Mccalum, or were you?
Yeah, I did. Well, it worked in my favor actually with Mike Mccalum. I remember because I remember the sparring session. He had legendary trainer I'm running a blank. I got the boxes blank right now, but he had a legendary trainer who was actually banned from the gyms because he had actually had a fight previously that he pulled out he sneakily pulled out the stuff from the glove, and his fighter ended up.
Panic in the glove. Oh my God.
Yeah, got his. Yeah, so it's his famous trainer. But anyway, he was there in the gym, but he was all the way in the back yelling out instructions to Mccalum. And then when I got in there with him, I'll never forget this. So one of my prideful moments was he had a few sparring partners that he was going to spar that day, and they put me in there with him, and I went to work on him, and they pulled me out after one round. Oh, get him out! So they got me out of there. They didn't want me, So I was like, but it was a prideful thing because like that was one of my guys. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you get there with guys like that. You're ready to like.
I mean, that must have been a huge confidence boost, right, at the time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I was already like very confident, but
But at what point?
When you're a fighter, see, people don't realize this. Like they, whenever you see, like I hear it a lot of times. They hear people saying, "Oh, that he's ducking him, or he's ducking him, or that guy, that guy's ducking. He's ducking him. He don't want to fight him. He's scared. He's ducking." It's never the fighter. We're stupid. Fighters are stupid. We're gonna fight anybody. Whenever you hear somebody's ducking, it's not. They're not ducking. We want to fight. We don't care who it is. If you're a fighter, you're gonna fight, and you want to fight, and you believe. Crazily, you believe that you can beat this guy. You believe you can beat the Mayweathers, the Mike Tysons, and you want to fight them. But it's the management that ducks. They're the ones that are in control, and they're the ones that keep you from fighting whoever it's going to be. And so I hear it all the time. Oh well, he don't want to fight since he's scared. It's never the fighter. We're as fighters, we don't care. We will fight anybody, and we believe in our heart that we can beat. Like we think we're going to win.
Did you run into issues with that with Dave Wolfe? Were there moments
where Dave managed my career. I just let him, whatever opponents they had, I just let them put them. I didn't even think about it. I was gonna fight whoever. See, as a fighter, we don't care. We're gonna fight whoever the manager says, okay, whoever's next, that's who we fight. There's never an argument over I'm gonna fight him. If that's the case, then you shouldn't be a boxer. If you don't want to, if you're not ready to fight anybody at any time or even spar, there was never, nowadays when I have these kids, these young kids, they're like, who am I sparring? We never asked who we were sparring. We didn't care who we were sparring. We just got in that ring. We were just thankful to be in the ring. And nowadays kids want to know, like, well, who am I sparring? That was never, ever a question. You got in the ring. That was it. And that's the one thing that I don't like about the younger kids nowadays. These kids coming up, and some of them have a spoiled nature about them. And even when it comes to money issues, a lot of these kids, they'll win 3, 4, 5 golden gloves, but that doesn't mean anything. Where's your Olympic, if you don't have Olympics attached to your name, you're not going to get, you got to work a job. Marvin Hagler worked a job all the way up until after he fought for the first title. He worked a regular job. You come from Boston, you know about that. You know what I'm saying? We had to work jobs. Like we'd have get over jobs, but we still have a job. You didn't, have the manager saying, unless you were Sugar Ray Leonard or somebody that was in the Olympics, it was never like, we're going to stipend. We give him a stipend. We're going to set him up plush. And all you got to do is think about boxing. We had to figure out a way to fit our work 9 to 5, what it was in with our training. And you train. There was no like, I got to work, so I can't train. You had to work and you had to train, you had to get all in, and you had to fight.
I was talking with Michael Ajade. Told him
Michael's a good friend of mine. Very good friend.
Told him to say I'd say hello for him.
Yeah, please tell him action and all. But just tell him, that's my guy.
Yeah, so I was actually talking to him the other day, and we do some videos together and done a podcast and he was talking about early in his career. He said the first few of his fights, I don't think he even got paid.
So what happens is that my manager, just to get you on the card, like it's not, it was hard to get on some of these cards, fight cards. And so what we would do was my manager would do is like he would tell the promoters is, listen, I'll pay my fighter. You cover the opponent. We just want to get on the card. And so that when you're bringing along a fighter, the key thing for you to bring along a fighter is to get him the experience that he needs, so that when he gets to the top, that he'll be ready for whoever it is he's ready. What I mean by that is that, the first fight you have is obviously a confidence builder. And, it's to see what, if you're made for this. In other words, when you get out there in front of a crowd and you don't have a headgear on for the first time, and then there's a big crowd and this is a real boxing, are you going to freeze? Or are you going to go out there and do what you have to do? So it should be with someone who, you're superior in skill to this guy. Maybe the other guy's had 3 fights and 3 losses. Maybe the other guy's never fought either. But you have a better amateur career than him. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that if you're building a guy, that, like if you look at all the guys that fought, you don't want your first fight to be against Mike Tyson. even if you could beat him, you want to wait till, okay, it's Mike Tyson's first fight, it's your first fight, and you could beat him, and he thinks he could beat you, and you both are Golden Glove champions. You're not going to fight 2 Golden Glove champions in their pro debuts. The reason why is, why fight them for nothing? Why should they fight each other right now for nothing when they can wait 20 fights later and fight for millions?
Right. No, I agree. I agree with you completely. I mean, it makes sense. However, I will say that there is a lot of over marinating of fights today.
Yes.
In terms of it gets to a level where it's like, okay, these guys are 20-0, whatever they are. Now it's the time for them to fight. I mean, there's plenty of examples of that between like Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Gervonta Davis, that whole 135 division, really. I mean, it's good to see Loma and Lopez are on the books to fight in a month or so.
Nice.
But
I love Loma.
Yeah, that'll be a tremendous fight. But a lot of that, there's still a lot of that going on in boxing where the promoters are protecting their guy or their managers protecting their guy.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate, because it's like, we want to see the best fight the best. And I think the fans are smart enough to respect that. If a guy takes a loss, you say, hey, well, he fought the other shark in the division, and maybe they can run it back. And
listen, there's no love lost with someone like Canelo Alvarez, fighting against Mayweather and losing. He's still going to Canelo's still going to the Hall of Fame, right? Just because he's got an L on his record for Mayweather, that doesn't mean he's not going to make it to the Hall of Fame. Or will we, lose any love for him? He did it because the money was there and he had to fight. That was it. That was, when Mayweather calls, you fight. But nowadays, like you said, what's happening is that people are being managed by people who aren't respecting the process of building the fighter. Now, what I mean by that, I mean, don't get me wrong. You want to make sure that anybody you push your fighter in there with, you want to make sure he can beat. But you want to give him different challenges along the way that enables him to have the full package, so that when he gets to the championship, he's fought the southpaw, he's fought the tall guy, he's fought the guy that can't get knocked out, he's fought the guy that's a great inside fighter. You don't want that to be one person. Okay, that's the trick. But if you can get a little bit of that in each of these guys, and then eventually you have to get a crossroads. What is a crossroads? A crossroads where it's, okay, now you got 17-0, whatever, this guy, now you fight against the other guy at 17-0. So now you guys can see what you have. Okay, and now whoever wins that fight, now you're going to go on to be ranked, top ranked, whatever, and then you're going to fight for the championship. So I'm saying there's a process, but here's the unfortunate thing is that nowadays when you get a loss early in your career, it can ruin your career. So what does the manager do? He's got a fighter who he's trying to build. Mm-hmm. Okay, where does he say, okay, this is a crossover fight? Where does he say that? Because when he takes a chance on putting his fighter in there with someone for no money, and the guy's a tough fight, and let's say he might lose, then it's like now you got that L on his record, and he lost his guy, and it just messes the whole process up as far as the manager building the fighter. So that's where the argument comes in. You're right. Fans appreciate good fights, and I think there are good fights to be made. The problem is there's, like you said, oversaturating. These guys are over, like there comes a time where enough is enough. These guys fought 10 tomato cans. Can you give him something to fight? You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah, no, it's a good, It definitely, a lot of people were frustrated with this summer schedule for boxing. There was a ton of really lopsided
Are you
matchups.
talking about 2020 summer? I'm almost scratching this summer, you know, way. But
Yeah.
even though boxing is coming back, but I'm just so, because it's a different feel. When you're in that ring and you don't have a live crowd, it is a different feel from where it's a different feel.
Yeah.
You can be you can, believe it or not, the crowd is it's been a part since the oh man, I got low battery, so let me see what I do. You there? All right.
Yeah. Grab a charger. We can cut out the pause.
Yeah. Let me do the charger thing. Yeah. Can you hold on, or how do we do this?
All good. Because we're gonna edit it, so I can chop this.
Oh, okay, cool. Let me get the charger. Let me go this way. Let me do this. Yeah. So.
But yeah, the once we get plugged in, we'll jump back in. No crowds.
Well, why did I do that? Okay, give me. Oh, okay. So I'm having some technical. Give me a second. One second.
No problem.
Okay, that should be good. All right, so
there's no crowds in boxing, and obviously, it's much different for these guys.
it's much different, and it's a different feel because the audience adds a different dynamic and dimension to the actual fight. Can we get that back? Yeah, at the end of the day, when you get in that ring, and you have the crowd. That's why crowd is important. The crowd is cheering the fighter on. In some places, a hometown makes the difference between a guy winning and losing. Because you got the hometown crowd. You hear your name being yelled, and you try to block that stuff out. But that's it's obvious that the crowd makes a difference with a fight. It's been that way since the gladiators. You know what I mean? It's like, sorry, yeah. So,
all good. Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely obviously makes a big difference. But like I was saying, with even tomorrow we have the Charlo twins back in there. And then the fall schedule looks really promising. We have Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez back in the ring. Davis and Leo Santa Cruz.
Yes, well, and Santa Cruz is
What do you think about that fight? You think Santa Cruz can pull it off?
You know what? Let me tell you something. So I was fortunate enough to meet Santa Cruz, and he trained for a few days at my gym where I'm at, Church Street Boxing Club, and yeah. So we, like people like saw him on my Instagram, like, hey, you know him. I was like, well, we became like cool, me and him, and his like father and his family. We got a very close to the family. They've been boxing since forever. But at the end of the day, I think that his lankiness, right, his his length, right, he's definitely a skilled boxer. He's gonna cause a different challenge for Gervonta. But Gervonta is probably he's definitely top 5 in terms of talent right now, in terms of like the kids that are out there right now. Top 5. I'm talking about pound for pound talent. But at the end of the day, I would put him top 5. That's how high I rank his talent. But this is his biggest test.
Yeah.
And so can he survive the test? I think that I think it's going to be a good fight. I'm a personal friend in a certain sense because Cruz is someone who I met. We hung out in the gym, whatever.
Yeah.
And so my heart is going to be rooting for him, but my mind is thinking Gervonta, because he's fast, he's talented, he's got everything's going to be tested. But at the end of the day, it's a test that I think he's going to win. To be honest with you,
I think
great fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously a great fight, but at the same time,
no crowd. I can't see it, but no crowd though.
I know it'd be a bummer if they don't have a crowd, but
that'd be bummer, yeah.
With Santa Cruz, though, I mean, it's like he's the one that's really taking the biggest risk because he's moving up in weight. So, like,
but here's another thing too. You got to remember, a lot of these guys who move up in weight, all right, they're not really moving. They're moving up in weight. Don't get me wrong, because they've been fighting at like say whatever 122, whatever. But in terms of like them walking around,
yeah,
he's a tall dude. If you look at him on, look, I was a middleweight, whatever. You look on Instagram, he's as tall as me. I mean, he's a tall dude, and he's walking. He drains himself to make those fights. What happens is that they get to a point where they no longer really can make that weight, or they can make it, but it's just costing them too much. And at the end of the day, it's a family decision. They say, let's move up, and so because at the end of the day, he's a tall kid. He's a tall kid. You can see his lankiness, and I think he can carry the weight very, very well. I think he'll carry that weight. So he's taking a chance, true, but I think he's going to be able to carry the weight very well because he's a tall kid. And I think he walks around with that weight. I think he's squatting with that weight, walking around with it. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Well, yeah, I mean, that'll be a great fight. And, the fall schedule leading into later this in November, or I don't know exactly what the date is set. I believe it's in November of the Wilder Fury trilogy. So fall into the winter is going to be great for boxing. There's a lot of big fights on the line, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's exciting. Definitely exciting. Mark is a very good friend of mine, Mark Breland. So I'm, and the first time I ever heard of Wilder was through Mark. I was in Brooklyn, and I bumped into Mark, and he was like, he says, "Yo, man, I got a heavyweight now." He's all excited, he's like, I got a heavyweight. I was like, yeah, well, And he told me about this young kid named Deontay Wilder, and I just started following him back then, and he was knocking everybody out. I mean, everybody out, And I was like, and I was more happy for Mark because Mark is like this. Have you had him on your show yet, on your podcast yet?
Oh, I'd love to have Mark on. I've had multiple people that are friends with Mark, and
yeah, he would.
Legends. I mean, he'd be awesome.
Yeah, if you can just, I don't know. I mean, right. I haven't seen him in a while, and I don't know if my numbers I have for him still work. But I mean, everything I bump with him is great. Yeah, Mark is great. He's just a great guy, and he would definitely be on the podcast. He would definitely do it. And a wealth, obviously, of information, and he's with the 1984 Olympic team. So was another friend of mine. Have you had Curtis Summit on your show?
No, another guy you could get lined up for me.
That's my guy. Yeah, Curtis. That's my guy, Curtis. Curtis is
Mark is very interesting with his background.
Curtis was with that '84 Olympic team. He's the alternate. Curtis Summit.
Stacked
team. He sparred with all those guys, Pernell Whitaker and Telly sparred with all those guys. And so yeah, he's great. And we sit down and talk, and I'm I'm old school, but like I'm listening to him, and he's like, he's telling me about like, funny stories about him and Pernell Whitaker, hanging out, at the training camp, at the Olympics, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
legendary.
he's a great. Curtis is in Texas, I believe now. We talk every other week. We talk, so I'm gonna see if he could. I'm gonna ask him if he would do it. Curtis would do
I
it.
appreciate it. I mean, much
But he's in
appreciated.
Texas. Maybe that'd be the one thing I could leave you is Curtis Summit. He fought for the world title, number one ranked. Trainer, great. Does this. Been with Equinox like 20 years or whatever, but I think he left him. I know he left him, but he's I don't know if he's in Texas. We could try to make that work. But anyway, yeah. So
with Mark, though, I was going to say with Mark and his background, which I think is really interesting. With obviously he's training with Wilder, and for Fury is Mark used to be at the Cronk Gym.
Mark was at the Cronk Gym. Yes, but that was
Fury made that switch in the trainer for the second fight, switching to that Cronk style. And it's just an interesting dynamic that, he obviously they both have relationships there with Cronk. Interesting in the style change and
true. But like for me, okay, so let me tell you about Cronk, a little bit about Cronk. Back when I was coming up in the 80s, Cronk Gym was like, we're talking about Gerald McQuillan and those guys. And it was like Cronk Gym was like, if you wore a jacket, like, nowadays anybody go buy a jacket or a T-shirt with the name of these gyms. Back in the days, you couldn't do that. You couldn't just be walking around with a Times Square Gym on, a Times Square Gym T-shirt or a jacket. You couldn't do that back then. Matter of fact, back then, if you were walking around with a Cronk jacket, there was one thing we knew you could fight. That was like, that kid, he could fight. Because Manny Stewart had that gym and all of his, God bless that Manny Stewart, another great name that we lost. But Manny, all those guys could fight. Cronk Gym has, but when Manny left, I believe like it just lost its flavor for me. I come from the old school Cronk Gym, of like where you said, where it's like, like with even with Mark Whelan, like these guys can fight. And so at the end of the day, I'm not too familiar with like Fury and his relationship with Cronk and like what's going on with the Cronk now. Are they even open now? Are they still back?
It's just Sugar Hill. Sugar Hill is within Fury's camp currently. We've seen them posting together and like they're just working together. So he kind of is representing. Fury wears some of the Cronk gear. And
okay. Well, yeah.
Even in the lead up to the second fight, he was wearing Cronk T-shirts and Sugar.
Sugar
Hill was repping it, and
all right.
Yeah.
But like I said, for me, like I come from like the old school with Cronk, so it's like for me, like if I see something now, it's like seeing someone wearing a Mike Tyson T-shirt. It lost its flavor. But back, because I come from a time when you wore that jacket. It really meant something. Like there was because you couldn't just get that jacket. And if you wore the jacket, it was like wearing the jacket of a boxing gang. Like, you see no, I'm serious. Like, like you see the gang, like, and we know, oh shit, he's from Cronk. That kid, he can scrap. You have to know his name, but you knew that if he had the jacket, he could fight.
So what do you think about the trilogy? How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, here's the thing. I always thought that in terms of boxing ability, that Fury was the best boxer, heavyweight, in terms of boxing, like his about just knowledge and what he knows and what he could do. Like in terms of skilled boxers, like he's just a really, really, to me, Fury was always like the most skilled, even more than Anthony Joshua, even more than Joshua. I felt that Tyson Fury is just skilled. Now, here's the problem that Wilder's going to run into. After being knocked out the way that he was knocked out, it does something psychologically to the fighter. And especially someone of Wilder's stature, the type of fighter that Wilder is, who he prides himself on being the knockout guy. Now he's been knocked out. You know what I mean? Like, how is that going to play on him? There's some real questions there. As like, and even the first fight where I thought it was. I gave that fight to Fury, to be honest with you. If you look at it in terms of points-wise, I thought that Fury had outpointed him. And so, if you look at that, and then the second fight where he clearly, like, just dominated him, it's going to be. I mean, look, Wilder's got to punch. He can punch. All right, and as long as you can punch, you've got a puncher's chance. But the challenge for him is fighting against a now cocky, in a way, Fury, who's the champ now. You know, once you're the champ, you know, it's a whole new dynamic for you. You know, you don't want to lose that. You know, and he's come from the gutter. Like, he was, you know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, he's like a heroin addict or something. He's come from, like, you know, and to be like the champ now, you know, and to had that different respectability and whatever. I just don't see. I don't know. I'm gonna be rooting for Wilder because of Breland, but I think Fury's gonna win that fight.
Yeah, I think smart money's on Fury, but like you said, I mean, you just never can count out Wilder, especially with that punch. You just don't know.
No,
it's going to be exciting. I mean, this is what
it's really exciting.
Heavyweight division on fire.
This is hope is there going to be an audience? You know, what I mean, that's the thing.
I think they're going to have. So they're going to try to do it at the new Raider Stadium in Las Vegas. And I believe they have been throwing around numbers of like 15 to 20,000 people there. They'll spread them out.
Okay, nice. So that's something. That beats the blank. That beats the blank. Please let that happen. No, because it's like
you can't have the heavyweight champion.
You see these fights and like, what kind of fight is that? You know, you got like phony people in the stands. They're just
cardboard.
Cardboard people. Like, come on. You know? Anyway.
Yeah. So it'll be good. But you know, to go back to your career. Like one thing that, you know, I was looking at your record and like, obviously, you know, you were knocking people out and you were winning and you stopped boxing on a win. I think that's unusual. You know, a lot of people, when they stop, it's because they lost a couple fights or something like that. So I was just curious, you know, why
good question.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay. So, I was always once I started boxing, it was that was it for me. You know, my passion and obsession for boxing is what made me successful. So I was passionately obsessed. Like there was nothing. My order of priorities was my higher power of boxing and then family. After that, like that was my boxing was everything. But that being said, I got a double hernia. A double hernia right after my last fight. And so after my last fight, I got a double hernia. And so it was like, I was trying to, I let it heal for the appropriate time. And you know, they had stitched it up. And then I went back into the ring and I could feel it still. And so it was like, I felt like I couldn't be 100%. And I didn't want to bastardize the sport. In other words, if I can't get in that ring 100%, I'm not going to get in the ring. You know, I mean, I know that I probably still could have beat a lot of people not being 100%, but at the end of the day, it's just like that, you know, I didn't feel like I was going to, you know, and it's not like that was 1995. It's not like today. Today, go to a plastic surgeon, whatever, and what the stuff they have, you get a double hernia, they stitch it, but you're back in there. But back in 95, it was like, like some primitive stuff, you know, like little needle and thread, stitch you up, and then, you know, here's a couple painkillers. And so even today, like I still feel it. Like it's the reason why I don't hit the bag much, the heavy bag. Like I'll jog, I'll shadow box, whatever. But in terms of like that heavy resistance hitting the bag for a long period of time, I don't do that anymore because I still feel it. If I lift something heavy, here I am 30 years later, whatever, and I still, 25 years, and I can still feel it. And so I felt like that was the reason I said, you know what, I can't, you know, if I can't give 100%, I'm not going to do it. And even though I was like, you know, I was world ranked, you know, and I was on my way, whatever, I just felt like that was a sign from my higher power, which came first in my life, saying that this is it. And, you know, when I stop and look at the guys that I used to, my roommate, Iran Barkley was one of my roommates. You know, we used to spar all the time, whatever. And then him, and then there's Leslie Stewart. These are names. I don't know if you know these names. And well, you gotta know Iran, but you know, Leslie Stewart.
I talked a lot about Barkley with Alajide.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think they fought. Yeah,
they did. They did.
Barkley, but we had sparred with them all the time. We were stable mates for a little while. We were roommates for a while. Anyway, and then, you know, like, these guys that went on and kept fighting, whatever, and a lot of these guys, they don't have the mental faculties. Like I'm a very successful trainer. the people that follow me on Instagram, they know me for my thing on Instagram, whatever. But that being said, I feel like it was a blessing in disguise because I still was able to maintain my mental faculties. A lot of guys who want to do what I do right now, which is, I teach. I work with a lot of guys from Wall Street, whatever. I make decent money, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm still doing passion, which is teaching boxing and the skills of boxing. And I have fighters. I got one fighter right now. She's top ranked in the country. I started from scratch about 6 years ago. She won the Golden Glove. She's national finalist. She won, but they whatever. We just came out from Olympic trials, and I started from scratch. So I'm in that circle with the fighters, with the trainers. They see me in the circles because I got to go. She wins. She's won every tournament. But that being said,
what's her name? What's her name? We can give her a little shout out on the.
Her name was Lena Catano, and we call her Sweet Pea.
Sweet Pea.
Yeah, Sweet Pea. But her name is Lena Catano.
Defensive skills.
Pardon me.
Defensive.
Oh, she's champ.
You can't have that nickname when
Oh yeah, she's beast. She's a beast. She's a beast. Definitely a beast. Like if you mention her name in the circle of girls, their face will light up. They know her. If they've been in the ring, and if they've been in the ring with her, then say no more. Because you can't be in the ring with her and not. There's one thing's guaranteed when you leave the ring is respect. Yeah. Guaranteed that you're gonna respect it. That's guaranteed. But yeah, so I started her about 6. She's 112. She's 112, but she's in there with every weight possible. She's in there with the bigger girls, whatever, and getting respect. Like she's just a beast. And more power to it. And it's crazy because she's a vegan too. She's been a vegan for like 7 years, whatever. And her energy is incredible. So the way I've taught her, she's nonstop punching. She never stops punching. Not for 1 second does she stop punching. She's every angle that possible. And she's throwing punches from every angle, and it's nonstop. That's her style. So when she's in the ring, everybody is awake. The judges, everybody's, because if they've been sleeping and she gets in the ring, now everybody's awake because there's going to be a fight. There's going to be a fight. That's just, she's nonstop. Whatever you decide, whatever you thought you were going to do, when she gets in the ring with you, it all changes. Everything changes. Whatever your plan, wherever you thought your plan was going to be, goes out the window. Because she's nonstop. There's no backward steps. It's a nonstop pressure and angles circling, whatever I've been teaching her. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing to watch her do what she does. She is the epitome of my training. I've been training, because I've had many fighters, whatever, but she's the one person that took everything that I taught and internalized it, and then so when I see her in there, and then took, and then stood on top of that. Even she does shit. I'm like, damn, I didn't teach her that. You know what I mean? So it's so it's a beautiful thing to have, to be able to do that. Like when we were at the Olympic trials, we were given certificates from the Olympics. They gave us the trainers. It says, you guys if you made it to this level, you got a fighter here at the Olympic trials. These are all top fighters. Then we, you guys deserve our respect. And then we all got like a plaque for just even bringing your fighter to that level. Because there's a lot of champions that just didn't make it to that level.
Right. No, I mean that's a huge level to achieve, and also that's a hopefully a future star in the making. And we have a lot of women's fighters that are coming up and active today that are starting to get a lot more shine. The women's taking off a lot. Like Mccalum was featured on ESPN a month or so ago. That was like the first main event women's fighter on Top Rank in like 30 years.
Yes.
Clarissa Shields is obviously,
she's
at the start of fighters, but there's
a
lot of women coming up. So it's like hopefully it's bright.
So there's a brighter future for women. There's still no comparison between men and women in terms of monetary comparisons. But I will say this: the Olympics, having women in the Olympics, has opened up the floodgates for these young fighters to now have that, that dream. In other words, for the longest, there was no, Olympics for women. So for them to have that gives them like, the young, is inspiring a whole new generation of youth that are like, yeah, I want to box,
Right.
and it gives them an inspiration. And like you said, Calistria Shields, she becomes a role model for these little kids that are young kids who they're just different. They're not going to play with, I don't want to play with Barbie dolls. I love daddy. And when daddy fights, I want to fight. You know what I mean? Like, what's up, what about that girl? You know what I mean? Like, so there's always different people. There are different people out there that do different things. There'll be a girl that's playing with Barbie dolls. There'll be a girl that's playing with, G.I. Joe. And she wants to box, and so, and oh, that's Clarissa Shields. Now I see someone that's like me. She's a woman.
Shout out to the Empress as well, Alicia Napoleon. I interviewed her a few weeks ago, and she was
nice.
Just as you said, though, she was growing up, and she was playing baseball with the boys in Little League and hitting home runs and all that, and then realized through growing up, she was like, I want to become a fighter, and jumped in, and obviously has got great success, and her career is still going. So she's a perfect example of that.
Yes, and that's a great thing. But yeah, man. So I've been blessed to be able to, like I said, to maintain my mental faculties. I retired when I still had them intact, and a lot of fighters, they have the chance to do that, but they don't. In other words, sometimes there's a voice that's higher than you that's saying it's time to quit. And as much as us, the fans, want to see these guys fight, me being a former fighter, I don't. I hear about different fights. Oh, Mike Tyson's going to fight against you, and that's a little different. Mike Tyson fighting against, say, Roy Jones. But please don't let those guys go in there against any of these young guys that are out there right now. Like, I do not want to see Mike Tyson against Tyson Fury. Okay, that's I'm just saying, like, him against another guy that's another former, Roy Jones. I'll accept that. But in terms of like, no. Once you retired, look at all the ones that came back. Everybody's came back. My idol in terms of boxing, he never came back. Your boy from your hometown, he never came back. All right, Hagler. All right, follow his lead. All right,
He was mad.
And you want to go even further?
He was
let's
mad.
go even further. We go even further back than that for a guy that never came back. Rocky Marciano from your hometown. He never came back. One of the very few that because everybody comes back. Even my idol Sugar Robinson came back. They come back, and so you ain't got to worry about me coming back. Okay? I can still show you a six pack right now.
Yeah, I saw your fighter pick like online, and you were shredded. So maybe you're...
Dude, no, but that was 30. I'm saying I can show you a six pack right now as we speak. Okay, and I'm brick right now. I just finished running. Shadow boxing 4 miles, running the whole time. Like I jog, I shadow box the whole time, nonstop. But that being said, I'm still not thinking about fighting. And I spar with my students all the time. I spar with my students, and some of the students I spar with have been 15 years. I've been training for 20 years. As a way of life, as a way to live. And I've got students that can fight, that are good. Like, you don't want to get in the ring with them. And I get in the ring with them, I spar with them, and but that being said, I'm not getting in the ring with these young bucks that are like, making money right now for a comeback. I don't care who, that's not gonna happen,
Yeah, we'll keep you as a trainer, bringing these fighters up.
Exactly.
And you can be a star in the corner now.
Exactly. I'm an inspiration. This is how you should look when you're. I'm 53. I'll be 54 next month. This is how you should be when you're. You should look when you're 50, 54, whatever. But at the end of the day, boxing is it's a big boy sport. It's a big boy sport. It's a very tough sport. It takes its toll. And at the end of the day, you have to decide, how much are you willing to give? And I mean, don't get me wrong, when you're in there, you give it your all. But then at the end of the day, when your all is gone, what do you have left?
Right. Yeah, it's it's a brutal game. So there's no, if you can get out with your faculties, like you said, that's a win. And a lot of guys stay in for too long, and you see the effects later on. So it's a tough game. But that's interesting hearing about your story and kind of how your career shifted into training, and now you got these young fighters coming up. It's pretty cool situation you're in, and I'm excited to see what's next for, what was her name again?
Lena Catano.
Lena Catano. So young star coming up, and Action Jackson is training her. She's going to be a stud, or she already is, but she's going to be a champ soon. But before I let you go, I did want to touch on a few recent news in the sport.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw today, Mcgregor and Pacquiao are supposed to fight. Obviously, I have mixed feelings on this. I think McGregor should be fighting in the UFC and not in boxing, but at the same time, he's going to make a bunch of money, so I understand why he's doing it. I understand why Manny's doing it. But what are your thoughts on that as a agreement, and then also as a fight?
Okay, so here's my thoughts on that. Listen, those two guys can figure out a way to get together and make a pile of money. Then as far as those guys are concerned, it's a win-win situation, no matter what happens. If you're looking for pure boxing, you're not going to find it with that. Why? Because McGregor is an MMA guy. The slick thing that Mayweather did was Mayweather took that fight into the later rounds, all right, where he knew that it was uncharted territory for McGregor. Right? I don't care how much sparring he did to prepare for that. If you've never been in a fight that's past 6 rounds, when you get into rounds 7, 8, 9, it's a different territory, and you can't. The only way that you can survive that is having to have had that experience of being in that. Yeah. And so that being said, I totally can see, how that played a part in the victory. He took him into deep waters. So I would say, for me, I see Pacquiao winning that fight. I see that fight being more of a for show type thing, but not something that I would look for as a pure boxing experience. It's something. It's guy's gonna make some money. It's more like it's kind of like Mayweather fighting against McGregor. If he's slick enough to convince the public that he could do something like that and make some money, then yeah, I see what happened.
No, I agree. I think the biggest difference is just Pacquiao is obviously a different fighter than Mayweather, in the sense that he's going to come forward and probably look to really damage him early on. So I'm going to be curious to see, how long he lasts, really.
Well, that true, but listen, Pacquiao is still very skilled. Matter of fact, he surprised me his last couple of fights. He's got like a third. He's got a third win. He's got like a third win. Nobody gets those wins. I don't know if it's something to do with the Philippines or something. I don't know what's going on, but he has almost rejuvenated himself. So he's been looking really good, and so he's got all that boxing experience and whatnot, and so it's a money thing for him. There's no way that he's going to let a McGregor beat him. I'm just going to be honest with you with that. And if you're going to bet, I had one of my students who he bet he had the biggest money on Mayweather when Mayweather fought against McGregor. He put $750,000 on Mayweather. He actually made ESPN. If you go look online, you'll see ESPN. You'll see he made he was on ESPN for the bet that he did, and he made I think he made $220,000, which is still a great make, but he put up $750,000 to make $220,000, because he said it best. He says sometimes Vegas is just giving away money. So that's my thing for that fight.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. It's a spectacle.
Don't get fooled. Sometimes Vegas is just giving away money.
Yeah. Well, it'll be good. Hopefully,
That's Manny Pacquiao. Okay.
yeah.
Not getting twisted.
Hopefully it's just good for the sport. You know, I hope more people will tune in and stick around for the other fights.
Yeah, maybe that can happen.
So.
Maybe that can happen. You're right. And Mcgregor he's a great showman. He's a great promoter in terms of like promotes himself, whatever. So yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe it will attract more. And look, that Pacquiao. Quick story before I leave you. So Mayweather is fighting against McGregor. Okay, the pre-fight that they had. Okay, they did with a friend of mine. He's a former fighter. I'm running a blank, but he did the pre-fight where like the keys to victory. So he did that with what's his name? He just got kicked off of I don't know what Showtime or whatever. Just kicked him off.
Malignaggi.
Yeah, Malignaggi. So Malignaggi's sitting up there in the ring with the guy who was a former MMA champion, whatever. So he's explaining Mayweather's keys to victory, and the other one's explaining McGregor's keys to victory. And they're both sitting in the ring, but the ring they were sitting in was Times Square Boxing Club. Was Church Street Boxing Club, my former gym. Not former gym, my gym.
Yeah.
Gym that I trained at. So real quick. Behind them on the wall, like there's a wall of fame, is my picture, the one that you see on my I think it's on my Instagram. We see me ripped.
Yeah.
8x10, and somehow the camera guy figure out, I'm gonna get some really good focus on these guys and that picture. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. If you were there in product placement and you were Coca-Cola, you would have paid $250,000 for that. Right there. I mean, my picture in that, so the night of the big fight with this, 100 million people watching, whatever it was, people saw Lennard Jackson with his hands on his waist, whatever, and I had my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. He said, "Yo, I saw you, man." Because they had the
you fight thing. Yeah.
that was a funny moment, but a memorable one too. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, man. So it's definitely had fun talking to you. And you had any more questions, or that was?
Yeah, no, I appreciate, you coming on and talking about your story and talking about some boxing topics. And, it's fun to learn about your career. So, everyone that is listening right now, please go follow Lennard Action Jackson. I believe
yes.
Instagram
is action_Jackson 202. That's my Instagram. So
awesome.
You can catch me there.
So go follow us on Instagram. Check us out on YouTube at ThePodMatrix. Make sure to hit subscribe. And this video will be out soon. Follow us on Instagram as well at Brooklyn Boxing Podcast. This was a great interview. I appreciate it. Action Jackson, one of the best names.
Yes, all right, Pete.
I love it.
Right.
I appreciate you.